Mute everybody first.
Yeah, I need to mute everyone. Correct. Okay, let me mute all and have 1 second. I'll just yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so over to you. Uh for some words of terror or wisdom or whatever.
Okay. So first of all, it's nice to see lots of familiar faces, and obviously Edra has a very dear place in my heart from my years in Edra and actually actively involved with the shul. And yeah, it's nice. It's also nice to see my parents here, although that always, makes it a bit more nerve-wracking that my parents are here. So have to actually think about what I'm saying. Of course, the big difference to speaking now and when I was speaking in the Beit Halimmud minyan is that in the Beit Halimmud minyan, when I was boring people to sleep, they had to kind of very subtly fall asleep in a way that I, couldn't see. Now people could just switch their cameras off. So, if I'm boring any of you, please feel free to switch your cameras off whenever you like. But so hopefully that won't happen. So we're now in a very important time. We're in the build up to Pesach, and there are many interesting minhagim. But the one minhag that everyone has in common is to go OTT. Okay, everyone has their own minhagim, shtikim, whatever you want to call them. Whether it's the kosher Pesach bleach, the pouring acetic acid on your floor tiles to get any pieces of dirt out of the cracks in between. In our house, the very important minhag to prepare for Pesach was washing the net curtains. So everyone has their minhagim, and the way a lot of minhagim work in Judaism is that things are usually done a certain way for many years, and then at some point, some frummers do it a new way, and then everyone does it the new way, and then eventually it's the death penalty for those who don't do it the new way. So that's the kind of the way things go. So I think one area that might express this to a certain extent is matzah, or as we used to call it in the old days, motzah. And we see a similar thing here. There was once upon a time, you have your matzah from, you go to Tesco's, buy your 50p matzah, rakuzans, whatever it is. And then it's, get my rakuzans matzah, rakuzans shmura matzah. And then it's like, no, we're going to get an Israeli make of matzah, an Israeli make of shmura matzah. No, now we need to get hand-baked matzahs with a hechsher. And then eventually, no, we need hand-baked matzah from Israel with 20 hechsherim. So the question I really want to deal with here is the big, long-running debate between machine matzahs and hand-baked matzahs. And as it would happen, interestingly enough, just this morning, I was learning something about Pesach, and I found that this debate, to a certain extent, goes back 2,000 years, because there's a question discussed in the Yerushalmi Gemara, and there they ask, they're discussing the case of matzahs that used to be made with intricate patterns. There was a way to make, we don't see this nowadays, but you can make matzahs with all sorts of beautiful carvings and different shapes and designs on it. So the question is such a matzah kosher? And they said, no, it's not, because if you try and make a matzah with beautiful, you're designing it beautifully and etc., you're going to end up leaving the dough for too long. And if it goes beyond 18 minutes, it could rise, it will be chametz. So they said, no, we can't allow this. But the Gemara says, what about Baitus ben Zunin? Baitus ben Zunin was a rabbi who had a press, a special matzah press, where there were pre-designed shapes on this press. You put the dough in and you pull it down, make the beautiful matzah, then put it in the oven. So they said, what about him? Could he make these type of matzahs? And the Gemara says no, because you know, what do you want us to do? You want to have the whole Jewish world don't have matzahs with designs on, and he does. It won't seem right. People won't know he has a machine. They won't know. So they said better that nobody has it. So already there's been some kind of 2,000-year debate going on with these kind of questions, but it really kicked off in 1857, because 1857 was the year that the matzah baking machine was invented. It was invented in 1857 in Vienna, as I said, and it really took off like wildfire. People loved this machine, and it spread very quickly throughout Western Europe. So the first Rabbanim to actually allow it were famous Rabbanim in France and in Germany. So around 100 to 150 years ago, the Rabbanim in France and Germany said it's fine to have machine matzahs. So it's interesting actually that already, you know, we're talking about something which is 100 to 150 years old, maybe even a bit more. So it's already quite Hamish. Even machine matzahs, you know, they've been, you know, my parents and their parents most likely, you know, had machine matzahs. But whilst in the west of Europe, people were starting to really quite like it, the Rabbanim in Eastern Europe were quite against it. And the main Rav against it, or the main Rabbanim is probably Reb Shlomo Kluger, who said those Sarfatim and Ashkenazim, the French and the German Rabbanim, they basically do whatever they want. They don't stick to minhag, and you know, we always hand-bake matzahs, and now they think they could just change the minhag and start using machines. He was dead against it. There were even more against it were probably the Hasidic Rebbes. The Sanzer Rebbe said this is not just a bad minhag, but it's chametz gomor. It's proper chametz. And there were many others against it, and they just said, you know, there's just too many risks. But slowly, there was a bit of a shift, and I'd say more kind of Central European Rabbanim started to go more in line with the Western European Rabbanim. So, for example, one of the most famous Rabbanim, the Ksav Sofer, he was in Pressburg, which is Czech Republic or Slovakia or Czechoslovakia, one of those. So he said actually machine baked are okay, and so did the Tiferes Yisrael. The Tiferes Yisrael was one of the main gives one of the main commentaries on the Mishnah. He also said machine are okay, and slowly in Eastern Europe as well, some of the great Rabbanim started to say actually machine baked are very good, and we'll speak about some of the reasons for and against in a moment. Some of the famous Rabbanim in Eastern Europe who went over to the side of machine-baked matzahs were Reb Chaim Ozer Grodzinski and Reb Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, who wrote the Or Sameach. And eventually, even in Eastern Europe, it became a bit of a split between the Hasidim and the Litvishers. The Hasidim said only hand, and the Litvish said no, only machine. And in fact, it got to the point where the machine, the people who were in favor of the machine-baked matzahs started to say, not only can you use machine-baked matzahs, but you should. And it's actually a higher standard of kashrus than the hand-baked. With time, as the technology improved, some of the arguments from the more Hasidic side became less to do with chametz concerns, but more to do with tradition, and it's a chutzpah to change long-standing ways of doing things. And that makes it quite an interesting kind of ideological discussion, because when we talk about changing minhagim, it could be that sometimes, you know, it might have been wrong to change from hand-baked to machine-baked. But then again, if now we've had for generations machine-baked, maybe it's wrong to change back or change to hand-baked, because, you know, it's not clear, you know, what's considered changing tradition and what isn't changing the tradition. but just talk about a few of the more halachic aspects involved. So one of the things, this is actually discussed in the Gemara originally, but comes down to this debate, is one of the early arguments was that with the old machines, there were lots of oils put into the machines, edible oils, which were used to help all the moving parts move properly, and it was a very quick process. And some of the early authorities said, with these machines, there's just no chance that some oils are not going to spread onto the spritz onto these machine matzahs. And these oils are called mei perot, right? It's like fruit juice, olive juice, right? Oil or whatever it is. It's a type of liquid that comes from some vegetable source. And once other liquids other than water get mixed up with the water and the flour, it can make the whole process of rising quicker than 18 minutes. So there's another big debate that arose, and that was, okay, let's say, generally speaking, the machine-baked matzahs are okay, but on the Seder night, especially, there's the mitzvah of matzah's mitzvah, that the matzah itself should be made with kavanah. We should have intention each matzah when we make it. So if you go to a matzah baking factory or you make your own matzahs, you're kind of smashing the dough and rolling it and everything, and you're saying l'shem and matzah's mitzvah, and you're really putting a kavanah intention into baking the matzahs. But you know, can a machine have a kavanah? Actually, this debate is a similar debate with making tzitzit. It's the same type of thing. Tzitzit is supposed to be made with kavanah when you turn each string. Now you have machines that do it. Can machines have kavanah? Can machines have intent? So some say absolutely not. That's why you cannot have machine matzahs for your Seder, because they need to have kavanah. But others say, no, it's not true. When you switch the machine on, you switch the matzah baking machine on, l'shem matzah's mitzvah. You pour the flour into the machine, l'shem matzah's mitzvah. So people say that actually it's fine. It's fine. Even machine-baked matzahs can be considered like made with intent to be the matzahs used for the mitzvah. Another halachic question is, where are there more likely to be errors? So some people say the people in favor of hand-baked matzahs say, of course hand-baked are better. Machines can malfunction. Machines can, things can go wrong. There could be technical glitches with the machinery, and then you can make whole batches of matzah which are just totally not kosher lePesach. But of course, the counter-argument to that is the people in favor of the machine-baked matzah say, what do you mean? You know, machines are very unlikely to make errors. Human beings are likely to make errors, not machines. So you can have the argument either way. You know, you could say, no, humans, we're really, really focused on what we're doing. We're really going to make sure not to make any mistakes. When it comes to the machines, so you can argue either way. Another thing is that people could say, with the in favor of the hand-baked matzahs, they say the machinery is very complicated. There are many cogs and small parts, and bits can get stuck here and there, and you know, you're gonna get problems with the machinery. But the people in favor of the machine-baked matzahs, they said, look, you can't compete with the machine. The speed and the alacrity of the machine, you're never going to come close to it with a human being. And there are all sorts of other debates, and it's a big discussion. But I'm just trying to kind of summarize it in a nutshell. So, with all these issues, if we could maybe like summarize the positions, it would be like this: that you have some people, particularly the Hasidim, who say hand-baked and only hand-baked throughout the whole of Pesach. You have the more Litvish view, the more Lithuanian, which is more machine-baked and only machine-baked. They're the best. And they have other opinions, which are somewhere more in the middle, which is on the Seder night, we'll have hand-baked, and then throughout the rest of Pesach, we'll have machine matzahs. So what should we do? What's the bottom line? The bottom line is, well, it's a lot up to minhag and also ask your LOR, your local Orthodox rabbi, who we have here, Rabbi Lister. So it's up to Rabbi Lister. But the good thing is that what turns out is today, I think it's very much a case of Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim, meaning either way, you're going to be keeping Pesach properly nowadays. And, sometimes you hear, people, they like to take on certain stringencies, so they're not happy necessarily with the way people used to do things. And you'll hear sometimes things like, oh yeah, Rakusan's matzahs, for example, they're no good. It's not true. They're excellent kashrus standards. If you're interested to see all the chumras, all the stringencies they have, they're all written, I think, on the side of the box. So really, both minhagim are strong minhagim. So do I have a minute or two just to end with a kind of more general idea about matzahs? So just two things I want to end with, and that is that, first of all, the whole idea of eating matzahs is a bit strange. We say the Jewish people, they didn't have enough time to bake the matzahs, so they very quickly put the flour in the water, and you ask yourself, why is that? They had only between 11:42 p.m. and 12 a.m. to make matzahs. I mean, couldn't Hashem just tell them a few minutes earlier they were going to leave? Or, if we would really leave a few minutes later, Hashem wouldn't be able to save us, and the Egyptians would be able, why is it so important that we had to leave within that short amount of time? And I think the idea is more of a kind of ideological idea. We were being formed at that point as a nation. And when we become a nation, we want to do things in the best possible way. And we want to be expressing character traits which are going to be characteristic of the Jewish people that we're about to come. And one of those character traits is ceresis, alacrity, speed, enthusiasm, energy. I once heard a rabbi say that it's so important that we should make a movement called Jews for Ceresis, but I think that sounds a bit wrong. So it's very important, this idea of speed, enthusiasm, alacrity. So that's why it's not just, we didn't have enough time to make the matzahs. We Dafka wanted to start our whole religion in a way of energy and enthusiasm. And the last thing I want to say is as follows. You do hear a lot throughout Pesach, oh yeah, I really don't like matzah. I don't like matzah. I did. And before you realize, you could go through the whole of Chag HaMatzot, the festival of matzahs, basically not eating any matzah, because there's so many cinnamon balls and almonds, macaroons that who really needs matzah? But it still is Chag HaMatzot. And just to put it in perspective, I think it's the Zohar calls matzah Nichle di Isfata, which means bread of a medicinal bread. It's good for us. Spiritually speaking, it's good for us. So, in the even though sometimes people don't like to take medicine, children don't like that medicine taste always, but we have it because we know it's good for us. So maybe on Pesach we should do the same thing, and even if we don't necessarily like the taste of the matzah, we should have it because it's good for us. So Pesach Sameach, Pesach Kasher v'Sameach to everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. That was very interesting, very topical. People can you can unmute yourselves if you have any questions. Does anyone have any questions? No? Any questions about the matzahs? No? Okay. Well, all right. I suppose we'll all do what we.
I've got a question.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The referral to our local Orthodox rabbi. Sorry, Rabbi Lister, is a very interesting point, because we all know that the rabbi will tailor an answer to the person who's asking the question. So we're still no clearer as to what we're supposed to do. If I was to ask Rabbi Lister, what should I do, machine or hand-baked, he'll give me my answer. But I can't imagine Rabbi Lister standing at the pulpit and telling everybody what they should do. Or would you, Rabbi Lister? What do you think?
It depends. There are some things that are clear cut and some things that aren't. So when halacha is clear cut on something, so for example, that we're not supposed to eat chametz on Pesach, I'll make that very clear. When it comes to things like hand-baked matzah, as Rabbi Finesilver says, it's a debatable area. I know that some people are very particular to have the hand-baked. My father-in-law, bless him, refers to hand-baked matzah as hand-baked shmura chametz, because he's, as Rabbi Finesilver indicated, that there is this worry that with the machine matzah, it may actually be better because it's more chametz proof. Ultimately, I'd say go with your family practice. If you don't have one, do whatever you like. A cautionary tale about the hand-baked ones. I've found that it's difficult to get a whole hand-baked matzah in a box. When you buy them in boxes, they often come.
Yeah, quite.
That's something to be mindful of.
That's true. That's very true.
Get 3, it's fine.
Yeah, you can get 3.
Yeah, I find that it's between 10 to 20% of the matzahs in my hand-baked matzah box are not broken. So when they're about 10 in a box, that gives you 1 or 2. And at 100 shekels a box, which is about 20 pounds, that's still not enough even for your seder. So that could be another reason why to have machine baked in matzahs.
We get 2 nights, Rabbi Finesilver. We get 2
We've got
nights.
2.
Okay.
This year, gluten-free hand-baked matzahs are going at £30 a box, and you only get 3 matzahs in the box. So you have to have 2 boxes for the 2 sedorim.
£30 a box. Well,
£30 a box.
Yeah, but gluten-free is different, that's why.
Well, I know, but it's expensive.
Is it ethical to make these kinds of stringencies on the one hand and charge exorbitant prices as well? I mean, there has to be a moral message in here as well. I mean, it must make you think.
especially this year with the prices, with inflation, etc., and people in hardship. And Beth have actually pulled back all the old regulations again. They haven't got the leniencies they gave for the last 2 years during COVID.
Oh no! What happens if you don't see them?
Yeah.
I've found that you can sidestep many of the Pesach price rises by not buying pre-manufactured products. If you make stuff yourself, and the extra cost of sugar and margarine oil is pretty small. Yeah. It's when you start going for the Pesach cakes and biscuits that the price
all the imported stuff as well. That's expensive stuff as well.
Yes, if you're judicious, it didn't cost a fortune.
That's true.
Learn to cook.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. On that note, we will draw the session to a close. Thank you very much, Rabbi Finesilver, for joining us, and thanks to your family for joining us as well.
Can I just tell Rabbi Finesilver that it's all right? I've washed my neck curtains.
Oh, good. So your patient is good. Okay. Great. Anyway, have a good day. Have a good weekend. We'll see you all next week again. Okay. Have a good day. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.